Now, as power cuts continue to disrupt production and continuity in our economy, we look to the week ahead in terms of economic data and really how key sectors are performing. And joining me now to discuss this further is Johan van Tondo, who's Momentum economist and a researcher for financial wellness. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Johan. Maybe just a quick reflection on some data that came out last week. We had electricity production notably coming out, showing a dismal performance. And that's obviously got to do with those blackouts that Eskom has had to institute over the last few months.
Yes, that's correct. It's not good reading at all. And it's got a lot to do with the blackouts which have been caused by, among others, the strikes, as well as the high price increases that have been suggested for municipalities as well as households and your manufacturers and so forth. So if you don't have electricity, it's very difficult to produce and actually increase economic activity. So definitely that was one of the main causes of the slowdown we're going to see in the second quarter's economic growth numbers.
And that comes on the back of, despite that being one of the big issues in the country at the moment, we did see some reprieve at the petrol pumps with the petrol price coming down. I mean, does this have a reflection on what's set to happen with the inflation rates in the short to the medium term, Johan?
Yes, that's a little bit of good news that we got, and that's unfortunately it's only going to show in August's inflation numbers. Before that, we're still going to get July numbers, which is going to look a lot worse. If we can recall, June inflation was at 7.5%, and it might go up to 8% in July, because what's also going to reflect in the July numbers is the municipal services increases in the form of electricity, water, sanitation, etc. So once those are out of the way, we can look forward to in August in a CPI that's going to be a little bit lower than 8% in July. So July should be the high. And from there onwards, we should see a lower petrol price in August and again in September if things continue the way it continues, because oil prices come down a lot to about $100 a barrel, and also the rand is strengthened. So a little bit of good news that we should see in August. But for the past quarter, the second quarter of this year, it's going to be bad reading at.
Let's speak about what's set to come this week, Johan. We've got business confidence numbers coming out, but just to kind of juxtapose, consumer confidence numbers have been quite subdued, only because of the lack of disposable income for the last 2 years ago. What are we anticipating to see within the business environment when it comes to confidence within operating in South Africa's economy?
Yeah, that's not going to be good. If we look at the composition of the business confidence index, basically every single indicator in the index is worsened in the second quarter up to May. And I think June's numbers, which we will see in this month, will not look a lot different. It, in some cases, will look even worse. If we can just have a look at what's happened thus far in, for instance, mining and manufacturing, which have been severely affected by electricity, as we know. I mean, in the first 2 months of the second quarter, it's been down on a seasonally adjusted and an annualized basis. If we look at mining, down almost 12%, and manufacturing more than 20%. And even retail sales down almost 1%. And then if we look at also the stock exchange, the all share index lost about 8% over the month, with resources leading there. So, and then also credit extension in the private sector, we see a lot in unsecured credit uptake and growth there. Imports been skyrocketing because of lack of production locally. So a lot of these indicators are pointing downward, and it might very well be that the business confidence index will lose even more in the second quarter, especially in the month of June. So not good reading at all there.
Not at all. And when we move on to issues about mining and manufacturing, for example, Johan, it's quite unfortunate. And I want us to start with mining before we move on to manufacturing. Mining has been able to produce brilliant tax revenue for South Africa, but production has been quite low over the last medium term. I think just because of issues around electricity and strikes and so. That's set to come out this week as well. Your thoughts on mining production data and really just some of the big issues that the industry has had to battle in recent months?
Yeah, as you said, it's fortunate that the prices were still high, and if you can thank the war, because you can never thank a war, but as a result of the war between Russia and Ukraine and the shortage of a lot of the commodities, that's actually pushed the prices higher. So it's unfortunate that we couldn't leverage from the higher prices and even produce more because of, as you say, the electricity issues. So if we could have had high price as well as higher production, SARS numbers could have looked even better. But unfortunately, we sit in this situation with strikes, and we just seem to every quarter there's something happening. If we can recall, I know it doesn't have a lot to do with the strikes, but the second quarter started off with the floodings. I mean, even that impacted economic activity right through, and indirectly impacted our mining sector. So yeah, it's very tough for them, and if the world economy is going to slow down with all the interest rate increases happening all over the world to cool down demand, to come down towards the lower supply, what we will see is most probably a further reduction in the growth of mining products that's actually responsible for a lot of our tax revenue as well as our export revenue, and also the earnings of some of the companies. So we hold thumbs that things don't get too worse there, but we need some more electricity for mining to perform in the way they can going forward.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Johan van Tonder, who's a Momentum economist and researcher for financial wellness, joining us this morning to speak about the economic week ahead and some of the major hurdles that South Africa's economy still has to jump over to see some actual growth.